About 8 out of 10 bushfires in Australia are caused by lightning strikes, and animals are always the first to suffer from fire. Over millions of years of evolution, they have come up with different ways of escape, and it has always worked, but only until the animals themselves became the cause of the fire. In the 1980s, a firefighter named Dick Yusen was called to extinguish a fire in Kokadu National Park. He eliminated the source of the fire, but suddenly noticed a kite with a burning stick in its paws. The bird flew a couple more meters, dropped the stick, and the fire immediately broke out in a new place. And no matter how much Yusen extinguished it, the fires appeared again and again and again, as if it was all on purpose. But that sounds like complete madness. Why would any of the animals set fire to their own house? They all know that fire is death, and where can a bird get fire to learn how to use it? How are these two-legged people doing so well? Okay, birds certainly don't make fires on their own. Anyway, people haven't seen anything like this before. But they make excellent use of the flame, which has already begun to burn. At least 3 Australian species, the black kite, the whistling kite, and the brown falcon, are considered serial arsonists. Rather, they spread fire. The first fire source may be a forest fire caused by lightning or any other cause. Just wait, and circumstances will surely set everything on fire. All that remains is to pick up the burning stick with your paws or take it in your beak and move it to the right place. I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out that the birds even thought of pulling branches out of the campfires. What's next? Logs from the fireplace. But wait, I still don't understand what the point is. Surely birds can't do this just out of harmfulness or a desire to burn everything around? And the reason is really different. As soon as a fire starts, most animals simply have to run for their lives. They get out of their hiding places and move in a certain direction, opposite to the movement of the flame. This is an urgent evacuation, the mechanisms of which are laid down by nature. And the arson birds understand everything perfectly. No one will argue with the instinct of self-preservation and argue that predators are suddenly lurking somewhere. Maybe it's worth looking around? What the hell kind of predators? We're on fire. And what's left to do at this moment when other animals are scared? Attack. This is probably the fastest and easiest way to hunt that predators have ever invented. I wonder if animals that run away from a fire are considered fast food. But when you're a bird, you really have to try to understand how fire works. To observe, draw conclusions, check exactly how fires spread, whether it is possible to take a piece of disaster with you and move it to the right place. It only seems simple at first glance because people learned how to use fire too long ago. And you know what? Perhaps the birds have traveled a similar path. The indigenous people of Australia have always known about those who were called firehawks. While scientists are still debating whether birds can really deliberately set something on fire, ordinary people figured it out 40,000 years ago, and they are sure. Yes, birds can and do this all the time. Utter madness. On the other hand, why not? After all, people once realized that it was possible to use the flames created by lightning for their own purposes. So why can't others? Birds can also observe and analyze what prevents them from taming fire. Give these birds a little more time, and in a couple thousand years, they will come up with their own Facebook. However, using fires is not such a unique ability. It's just that animals don't usually start these fires on their own, but they've long figured out how to make the most of a devastating disaster. Marabou, like some other birds, follow fires, not in front of them. They usually feed on carrion, as well as insects and small things like rodents. So the burnt, outland is the perfect place for a marabout to have a feast. No wonder they are called undertakers. It doesn't matter that they got the nickname marabou because of their appearance. Agree, they are not very pretty. Some terrestrial predators also use fires for their own selfish purposes. Bears and raccoons often hunt animals that are trying to escape from the fire. I don't know how they don't light up themselves, but maybe it's all about experience and cold calculation. When you understand which way the fire is moving and at what speed, you can make a plan of action. However, many species already have their own rescue algorithm. Not all animals thoughtlessly rush away from the fire. Amphibians can dig into the mud, some moose can wait out the disaster in the nearest reservoir, and kangaroos sometimes run towards the flames. According to research, kangaroos, like other wallaby marsupials, take risks by crossing the border of a fire to occupy an area that has already burned down. They can be understood. If there's nothing burning anymore, then there's nothing to burn. That means it's safe. Perhaps if animals learned how to put out fires, it would be much easier for all of us. But that's still a long way off. So far, the maximum that nature can offer is arson birds and chimpanzees who understand fire. Not in the sense that they talk to him like Harry Potter talks to a fireplace. Chimpanzees remain cool-headed in front of fire, possessing an almost human-like ability to predict the spread of wildfires. Seeing the flame, they calmly avoid it. No stress. By the way, it was with this that our distant ancestors once began the taming of fire. It is unlikely that any other animals, like turtles, have the prospect of using fire, but they have learned how to save other creatures from disasters. The gopher turtle is able to dig excellent burrows that serve as a shelter for more than 350 other species during fires or hurricanes. And most importantly, the owner of the burrow does not mind the unexpected neighborhood at all, although snakes, including rattlesnakes, rabbit owls, various frogs, invertebrates, and probably anyone who can crawl through the entrance hide next to her. Perhaps if all the same animals that actually suffer from fires realized that sometimes birds are the cause, they would. Well, they were dealt with somehow. Perhaps many fires in Australia would have been extinguished much faster if it hadn't been for the birds' love of fast food, but it's not just birds of prey that set fires. You've probably seen birds sitting on wires. A completely ordinary picture. If these are modern wires, then everything should be fine. But if the power lines were designed at the beginning of the last century, then the bird is quite capable of provoking the appearance of an accidental spark. Well, we didn't think about the impact on wildlife then. A bird can even just crash into a wire, and then a spark hits the feathers light up, and yes, the poor guys were really unlucky. But it turns out that about 1,000 years ago, people even used birds' abilities to set fire. Of course, there were no wires then, and it was far from the invention of electricity. Princess Olga, who ruled Kievan Rus, used birds to capture the town of Iskrostenge. The siege lasted for a whole year, until Olga went to the trick. She offered the residents to pay her a strange tribute of 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows from each yard. Of course, people were surprised, but they agreed and gave Olga the birds. Then she ordered to tie some dry grass to each one, and at night, when it gets dark, set fire to the grass and release the birds. Pigeons flew to their dovecotes, sparrows under the roofs, a fire started, and residents were forced to flee. The city was taken. It turns out that such a thing as fires can be beneficial to predators and Princess Olga. In principle, it seems to be true, but when I began to study this issue, I discovered an unexpected thing. It turns out that animals almost never die because of fires. Unless, of course, they last a very long time, occur due to natural causes, and do not occupy too large territories. Animals are used to the fact that something burns on the ground from time to time, and they know how to behave. Moreover, fires even have a positive effect on nature. Burnt-out pastures, for example, produce 20 times more food for moose. It is unlikely that moose will act against fires. In addition, wild areas such as forests and prairies naturally grow and change over time. A fire is something like a reset button when everything is reset to factory settings. But sometimes even the best reboot in the world can get out of control and give you a blue screen of death. Wildfires can be so intense that they can create their own weather systems, causing even more fires. Yeah, you heard right. Fires that cause fires. Smoke and hot air rise up, where pyrocouchic clouds form. The trembling air causes water droplets and ice crystals to collide, accumulating an electric charge and turning the system into a giant thunderstorm mushroom. Thunderstorms mean wind that fans a fire, and lightning that causes new fires at a great distance. Even a fiery tornado created such a mushroom at least once. Can you imagine the consequences? Phew, in general, everything is fine in moderation. especially the fire. See you soon.